Hey guys, my name is Sasja and today I'm going to explain you more about concretization. But before I start, as you guys know, psychological communication is divided into two aspects, the personal line and the professional line. Today will be the last part of the professional line, after which you guys will be prepped as best as possible for the interview you will do. Okay, starting off with an overview of all basic skills. So far you've had minimal encouragements, paraphrasing, reflection of feelings, summarizing, asking questions, and last but not least, today we will focus on concretization. Alright, so concretization, what does that mean? Well, it already comes up a bit in the word itself, concrete. This is a technique you use as a pro to make sure your client will describe the subject in question as concretely as possible. This points to the most important function, clarification. This clarification creates more insight in the situation of your client. Having a better insight makes that you can empathize better with your client. It gains a more clear view on the issue your client wants to be helped with, which finally makes that you can provide better help. So in which case do you use concretization? So when to use? You do this when your client makes use of vague terms, which causes no clarity. Take the example below. So your client says, "Sometimes I just do not feel too well. I'm not exactly sure how come." So as you can see, there are multiple vague terms here. Sometimes. Well, how many times then? Or when? Not feeling too well. What exactly does he or she feel then? And not exactly sure. What does that mean? So with these three different ones, you can imagine that you go into different directions in the conversation. It is up to you that you clarify whichever you feel is the most important and relevant for you. However, also pay attention to, which is the same as for the other basic skills, the feelings and the frame of reference of your client. So what I mean by that is try to stay on the same page as your client, which will make them feel more understood. Alright, so how exactly do you concretize then? So you do that by making use of follow-up questions. Do this until the desired degree of concreteness is achieved for you. At the same time, do consider the feelings of the client too, while keeping on asking your questions. So this can be experienced as difficult. This is mainly caused by the experienced fear or tension from your client. Alright, so let's take back the example we used before. So imagine this is said by a client of yours who has mentioned to be suffering from panic attacks. As soon as you ask when they get that feeling of having a panic attack, this is the response you get. Yeah, sometimes I just do not feel too well. I'm not exactly sure how come. Alright, so this is a very common and understandable response, because it is human to, whenever a subject is brought up which goes along with fear or tension, that people stay vague. It serves as an often unconscious protection mechanism, because this way they do not have to get close to their own feelings, or they could be wanting to avoid rejection by you as a helper. and that is why they remain vague. So most of the times you can see discomfort from your client. And you can imagine that if you see and hear your client say this, that you can get uncomfortable yourself too. Because, for example, they start moving in their chair, or maybe they even get a bit sweaty, and that makes you feel uncomfortable. Well, in turn, this could lead to you feeling less comfortable to ask follow-up questions, because it may come across as unpleasant or not understanding, because you start questioning and digging in their feelings. However, that's exactly why they came to you. So that's when you do have to make use, or it's advisable to make use of concretization in such a case. So to go more into depth, show them that it is okay. And in turn, that will help your client more, and you, because you get a more clear view of what your client is feeling. So what exactly does a follow-up question look like? Well, first of all, be concrete yourself, because if you're not, it will cause more confusion, which is something you want to prevent from happening. Alright, so you can make follow-up questions by starting with, for example, what do you mean with, or could you give an example for? So on the answer you just got from your client, you could ask, what do you mean with not feeling too well? Or could you give an example from when this happens? So that will lead to a more detailed description of what your client is feeling at that right moment. And that's something you want to achieve as a helper. So in short, this makes concretization characterized by the following 3 points. You clarify the most important vagueness. Doing this by having concrete use of language yourself. By making use of follow-up questions. So that is, in short, what concretization looks like. Okay, so now it's your time to practice with concretization by doing the following homework assignment. So you're gonna work with case Harry. Harry is a yoga teacher and he'll explain you some more about some issues he's been having with his boyfriend. So you'll see a short film fragment and it's divided into 6 parts. Whenever the screen turns black, it's your turn to write down your concretization. So ask yourself, like, what would I ask Harry at that specific moment? So for a more detailed description, you can see the description below the clip itself. So when you're finished, make sure you email your document to your teacher.